requirement, so I think. it's a good
After
idea.
tomorrow, I'll have a few signs available that you just paid over if you'd like.
Absolutely. That's big enough.
Big enough,
Okay.
yeah.
Jeffrey?
Yeah. First of all, I have a sign, and it's about, like, this, if that makes any sense. Did you change them if Mike has only this?
Mine's about this big.
Yeah, mine's about 8 by 6.
Well, the town one's pretty good size. I think it's.
Yeah, the older ones were maybe 10 by 10, they're green background with yellow lettering.
Maybe that's what I have,
The newer
yeah.
ones are a little bigger, they're about, maybe as big as
Newer-
15 by
newer
15. But
bigger?
again, they're big,
Okay.
the lettering's reflective, so you can see them in the dark.
Yeah. With regard to the auto shut-off valve, that you, with the cup, you said it was about $50. That's for the cup itself, or is that including installation?
That's for the cutoff. Though,
So it's about $50 to buy it, install it, and,
there are some real sophisticated programs out there that'll take into account, wind speed and percentage sunlight and relative humidity over time, and they'll shut your system off for you too, but those are a lot more expensive, obviously.
okay.
Basic rain sensor, it's just what Dick was describing, it's a cup that catches water.
And I just have one more question.
Mr.
In
Percy?
regards to the triggers, and I know you're really focusing on drought, but where does quality of water come in? If you had an issue with the quality of water, do you have to have another plan just for that issue alone? Or can we
No.
tie it all in?
If you look at the draft bylaw number B2, I added a sentence in there that says if something else happens, such as a disaster occurs or infrastructure failure,
Okay.
because I know the form is never going to be a catch-all. Everything's going to be a little different. We all know this going through this before. So I figured that would give flexibility for the selectmen to adopt or modify based on something else that might happen that we're else can't plan for.
Thank you.
Question. This is something the Board of Selectmen can adopt, correct?
Correct.
Right.
The board adopts it by vote.
Okay, so this would be a first reading? If we,
Mhm.
Necessarily, it has I mean, this is a public hearing on it. I think if we want the input, and if any modifications were being suggested, by members of the board or the general public, then you're gonna finalize it, and then we'll have a final draft to memorialize, and then first, second reading done. So I think this is discovery,
For example, Mr. O'Leary and I, we're both interested in those fee structures. I think we should just give a little more background on what they are before we.
To be honest,
I think
I don't
it
plan on
would-
recommending any fees, just a boilerplate. If that's offensive, we can strike it.
It's not offensive,
No,
we just
no,
want to
no.
know what it means.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not offended by the fee.
I just don't see
Especially
it as being a
that-
big labor thing. We'll probably adopt someone else's form. We probably can put online a digital, what do you call it, a fillable
But
PDF
I
or some
think
kind
if
of
we're gonna
electronic
adopt
way.
this, I think we need to adopt, if there's gonna be a fee associated with a standard, if the policy's gonna be to have a standardized sign for private wells,
Right.
then there'd be a fee associated with that, should be adopted as part of the whole proposal. So we'll have an initial fee structure, or if there's gonna be a registration fee for private wells or a registration fee acknowledging that they have the proper devices, because initially, there's gonna have to be some sort of inspection to assure that anybody who has an irrigation system is in compliance, right?
Mhm.
And then as people add the irrigation systems or repair them, we would just want to make sure they're in compliance with it. So there may be some nominal fee associated with that, just to
A lot of
assist in
this,
covering
in
costs.
prior communities, we tend to find the people who install sprinkler systems and educate them, and then they tend to help us put in what has to be put in. That's one way it worked.
Yeah,
It
sure, yeah, that
helped
makes-
going forward to help.
That makes a lot of sense, sure, absolutely. But do those individuals or those companies that do the installation, are they required to pull any type of permit? Even though there are some
Plumbing
codes? The plumbing
If they're
codes.
installing a private well, they pull a permit with the Board of Health. If they're installing a sprinkler system, I've never seen a permit.
I don't believe
I
they
don't
have to.
recall them either. I ask it kind of
Yeah.
rhetorically, only because if there are some plumbing codes that need to be met, are we assured that they're being met? And I think the answer is obvious, we
Right.
don't. We don't know. We don't know if there's backflow devices in there or not, even though a reputable installer would probably do that. We don't know that they are.
And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but you can go to Home Depot, Steve, if you want to put one in on Sunday, you can buy the parts at Home Depot, and no one will know. So it doesn't even have, most of them are done by reputable installers. You do see, you know, if you see those loops on the outside of the house, there's a piece of copper coming up with a little thing with a cap on the top. That's the backflow preventer on a sprinkler system. But, you know, you don't have to have that. You can go to Home Depot and get some, you know, plastic tubing in the sprinkler heads and run it yourself.
But what we're saying here, though,
Is you're gonna have to.
is that it's gonna be mandated that they're required to have that. And I think what we're saying too is that the state code requires that they have it anyway, but
We get called out a lot of Sunday afternoons because somebody shut their water off in their house to fix their plumbing and it didn't turn back on. And, you know, can you help me out here? They didn't pull a permit to do that work, you know, they're doing their own plumbing in their own house. It's hard to keep track of everyone.
yeah.
Mr. Yule?
And I'm sorry, you know, if you keep these hearings open long enough, more questions will keep popping up, so I apologize for that. But earlier on, you indicated that to properly grow your grass, you probably only need one watering a week.
Several pieces of literature indicate that one heavy watering is better than several not-so-heavy waterings. If you get a deep watering, the roots go deeper, it's more robust, whereas if you water too much, the roots don't have to look for water, so they're shallow, so it's susceptible to drought, susceptible to grubs, all kind of things.
Then,
And I'm not an expert on turf, I'm just
yeah, I
repeating what I've
understand
read.
that. With that in mind, why not suggest that lawns only be watered once a week?
Because I didn't think that would fly to be reasonable for people that want to water their lawn.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Probably right. I mean, but-
Yeah, if we were in Arizona, I would say, yes, I agree with you, but
Yeah, I'm not saying do that, I'm just
Right.
wondering, you know, why when you put all the
'cause until-
facts together, something's
yeah,
telling you.
until the
this
water
is-
demand takes off, it's really not an issue. You know, we have the capacity to supply water up to a certain amount. It's those extremes, and typically it's now through Memorial Day. That's when you see the huge peak in the water use and it hopefully drops down. Or some days it goes, some years it goes all the way up to like 4th of July, then your lawn burns out and you just give up. So,
And I
the
should
spring tend to be
re-
our worst cases.
I should remind everybody that we've had water deficits when we couldn't sell enough water. So we want to keep that in
That's true,
balance,
that's
right?
very true.
And as of right now, I think we're still 4.5 inches short of what we should be for normal for water. All the rains helped, this week will help.
Take care of itself in the next 3 days.
Yeah, we're still in a drought condition, basically. The state says we're in a mild drought condition now.
Any further questions for Dick?
I do. Dick, one thing that I may have missed is penalty provisions. What happens if someone continues to water in a stage 4 emergency or something similar to that? What are the rules and regulations relative to?
There are like 11 existing sections in the bylaw that weren't changed. One was, it's for fines, and one allows shut-off. So that was also part of the October 2010
We
town
increased
meeting.
it, didn't we? then?
I think the fee stayed the same, but allowed a provision to shut off.
It allowed for the shut-off. I think the change was allowing for the shut-off.
Yeah.
Right. Currently, I think at the time, there wasn't a provision to allow shut-off. Or,
That's better.
Right.
in some communities in here, actually, as part of the irrigation systems, they said have a place outside so somebody can go up and turn it off if need be, rather than shutting the water off to the entire house. And I thought that'd be a bit much. But I think some sprinkler systems, you come out using that box and handhold you pull out, I think there's a shut-off in there anyway. But we clearly don't want to turn the whole house off.
There is.
You know, that's,
Each zone has one.
each zone has one. Yeah. So there is a lot of communities that had that. I just thought that'd just be too much for us. A bridge too far.
Any other questions for Dick? I'll close the public hearing, and we'll take this under advisement.
I would just suggest that, you know, for our first reading, that, you know, some sort of a fee schedule be proposed along with what's here in relation to whatever it is we're looking to address up front. Again, we can always modify that later on. But as far as the signage, if we're going to require the signage, I
Right.
think this should be modified to reflect sign for private wells issued by the town. Sign will be issued by the town, and that's the only one that's going to be recognized, and then an associated fee with that.
Or another way to do it is if we, you know, the town can provide them, got to be a certain way, or we can say everybody has to have a sign like this, if that's too restrictive. So I'm open to ways to implement that. It probably lead to 80,000 different shapes and sizes of signs. So,
I just think if it's uniform, I think if it's uniform, there's no question from an enforcement standpoint, either you're registered or you're not. You know, kind of
Yeah,
ends the debate.
Process of registering, you know, we get the questions of like the backflow and
Right.
the on-off sensor, and the separation of the, if you're in a well, separation of that from the town water supply, which is probably more critical.
That's the most critical issue.
Of the items. Mr. Yule?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I would also we'll have some time now, but I'd like to see, have him run this by the Water Commission. I know it has been discussed, but I think.
Not to this level of detail.
Not to this level, right, so. but
Just
I
whenever
think
the next
that-
scheduled meeting is, we could, depending on what happens tomorrow,
Right.
if
But
there's a quorum.
you can still have,
The water commission isn't going away.
right, you can still have quorum, no matter how the election turns out. But if you get their feedback to reinforce what we're doing, that would be on a positive.
Anything else?
I'll just ask to have the existing bylaw incorporated or provided to us when the next time this comes up, so we can look at the whole document as one.
Oh, I thought I had emailed
Piecemeal,
it.
yeah.
I thought I made that an attachment, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's that?
I thought I made that as an attachment to the,
There's pieces of it.
Yeah.
No,
No.
you have the warrant article.
He's talking about the email that Greg sent to us, right, he forwarded to us, I believe, but I don't remember that. I don't remember if the old one was in it.
Yeah, we don't have the existing.
Unless there was an email you.
I think that, the old bylaw got thrown out. It's gone.
No,
Right.
but there's
No, it's
parts.
gone. It was replaced by the Board of Selectmen.
just
Now do
just
it.
this one section, 191-6. The rest of it's still there.
Yeah, look, right here, I have it.
And I can,
We were talking about penalties,
right,
and you said that still exists.
correct. I can,
So I
I
just-
can send that to everybody.
Whatever still exists.
We all should have a copy of that bylaw,
Right,
Yeah.
and I agree.
yeah.
Would it be nice to have it in a packet?
Yeah,
We'll-
I don't
we'll
disagree,
do
I'm
it.
just saying
That's all.
Mhm. I can do that.
Mine too.
that, okay,
So are we giving the administration clear direction here, or are we not? You know, this set us up for a first reading. I set the board up for a first reading. I say us, I'm not being presumptive. You know, set the board up for a first reading.
Mr. Falconer?
We'll have to consult, because this is really not a policy, this is amending the bylaw and forming a regulation. So I would suggest that the board simply provide input and we'll look at it for the next meeting.
So have one more before first reading?
No, we can submit it for first reading at the next session.
You can make it a 10, that'll be good. Yeah,
It'll be fun.
So you've got a list of the items that would, thank you, Dick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, Approve the bowling alley license. Before we go to Chestnut and New Streets, is there some representative of the bowling alley here? No? I guess we can wait. I thought there was someone here.
No, the license is, it's one of those routine renewals, it renews in May of every year.
All right, we'll wait then.
Okay.
Chestnut and New Street travel options.
Good evening again. After the last meeting, we were asked to do three things: answer 2 questions from the state and get some additional quotes. I'll start with the quotes first. Town engineer went to 5 other firms with the same packet he gave to the first company, and no one responded, long story short. For purposes of 30B, 30B requires us to seek 3 written quotes, but it doesn't require them to get 3 quotes. So in that case, the first quote I gave you was from the Tri-Town Consortium low bidder, which it was a 30B bid that was valid. We've done it again, and so we've kind of done it one more time, and so the bid is valid to meet the state requirements. It's such a small job, some of the firms just didn't want to deal with it. That's the feedback we got. And as for the 2 questions from the state, I got a hold of the regional, or the district traffic engineer, Mike Harris. And the first question was, does the traffic data age from the date it was obtained? And his response is, traffic data does age, but 2011 counts will be valid for the purpose of this truck exclusion study, if we're talking about the next 12 months. And they had various things. Keep in mind, there's other things they take into account besides adequate alternate routes in the same community and so forth and so on. Second question was, can a town make